All right, Coach Hoover, Director of Athletic Performance at Metrolina Christian Academy and SimpliFaster, excuse me.
Yeah.
I got to say that right, or maybe Coach Holler will come after me. I don't know.
No, SimpliFaster is right. It's Metrolina. So it's like Carolina, but it's Metro Charlotte. So Metrolina.
I'm a dumb country boy. I'm not good with words.
That's okay. A lot of people say that, Metrolina, because that's what it looks like. But
yeah, I'm the guy that has to like count with his fingers and look at the word and pronounce it because I grew up in the cornfield.
Yeah. That's I'm all over the place with jobs. I mostly work with football and baseball at Metrolina. I work a little bit with other sports because I'm only there. I'm not like your typical high school strength coach anymore. I'm on campus when I can be on campus, and I'm at practice and things most of the time. And during the fall, I'm there for everything. But because my real job is working for SimpliFaster as their performance and technology specialist, and then I've also got a side gig of Hoover Performance, which is going pretty strong too. So yeah, I'm all over the place. I'm looking forward to this. Your week off is this week. Mine's next. So we're leaving for Aruba Monday morning. So
that'll be fun.
Yeah, I'm hoping. Yeah,
you're just gonna turn the phone off and just kind of relax.
Yeah, I was talking to Mike Wright from South Sioux City High School yesterday, and he said I should do the obligatory picture when we get to the airport of hey, I'm about to go to Aruba. If I don't reach, so people know not to call, because my phone rings nonstop, and I don't mind that. I have a problem not answering. It drives my wife crazy because even my boss at SimpliFaster is like, you have got to draw a line in the sand at some point and stop answering the phone call after a certain time.
Right.
But it's hard. So I'm hoping to, not do any work while I'm in Aruba.
It'll be hard. I know. I got married. I did a sin. I got married during football season because my wife's like, it's got to be in September. It's got to be on a Friday. So I missed a football game, my first time in 14 years.
Oh, you're that guy. I gotcha.
Oh, I took a lot of shit. I've taken. Well, her dad's from Ireland, and it was way cheaper to travel from Ireland in September. Yeah. It was like $400 round trip, and we're like, okay, like it's fine. And we took our honeymoon in spring, and we went to Cancun, and we both were the same way. We got there, first 2 or 3 days, no work, and then about that third day, she starts checking email. I'm checking my phone, and she's getting work emails, and I'm like, we can't be. I'm getting. Our football coaches were good about not really saying anything, but I was or the coaches at school, because I coach softball. So I'm like, just making sure everything's good. And we're like, wait, are we really working right now? We just threw our phones. We're like,
I'm telling you, man, SimpliFaster won't put any work my way. But at this point, everybody has my cell phone number.
Gotcha.
So most of the work I actually do for SimpliFaster doesn't even come through the portal they have for me, where people send emails and ask questions. It's just people just send me a text.
Yeah.
I may just have to put it on some mode where only my daughter can call or something like that in order to, but we'll see.
But if you're all constantly busy, I mean, you're doing something right, I guess, because people want to reach out to you.
Yes, yeah,
right.
Yeah.
Let's be positive about this. You're doing something right, and they want to know what your opinion is and work with you. So how did you end up where you're at now? Like, how did you get into like strength conditioning? How did you get up with SimpliFaster and all that stuff?
Oh, wow. So I came from the football side. I went back to school after trying a different career path. Really quickly knew that it wasn't something I wanted to do. And so I went back to school way back when, and was a graduate assistant in football, and I got my teaching education through that. So I taught social studies for the first probably like 15 or 16 years of my career, just coach football. And but you what happens is, especially back in the 90s and early 2000s, is there was no strength coach. So whoever was the weightlifting dude on the football coaching staff became the strength coach. And so, yeah, the first time my first high school assistant position before I became a graduate assistant, I was there for a year and a half, and that's exactly what happened. They were like, I was in my mid-20s and all beefed up, and they're like, "You're the weight room guy." So that's how it started, and then when I got back into high school, that's kind of the way it just went. And I don't know, maybe 10 or 12 years ago, well, maybe longer than that now, actually, going on almost 20. I started to get more and more into the strength conditioning side, and then went and visited the school I coached at. Ethan Reeve, who was at Wake Forest at the time, his son played on a football team, and so I had a connection there, and I started to go up there and hang it out, and I realized that strength and conditioning was what I wanted to do. And so I slowly but surely went back to get more education and more certifications, and eventually 10 years ago, it'll be 10 years ago this year, that I slid out of football and just stayed in strength conditioning. So, and then that led to a few years at the school that I had coached football at, and then 7 years in South Carolina at a high school where it was essentially, in South Carolina, in many schools, it's essentially like being a college strength conditioning coach. They're all in classes, and you get them year round and things like that. And I did that until started working for SimpliFaster part-time, probably 2018, just writing and doing different things. And as I guess, accomplished tasks for them, their trust in me grew a little more and more. And eventually they offered me a full-time position, and I accepted about 15 months ago now. I started
that's awesome.
Previous February 1st. And so currently that position, I work from home. I do a lot of traveling, clinics. I don't know how many clinics I've been to, but I know since June, I think I've been on a plane 6 times.
Oh, wow.
6 different trips. I got one more left this summer, and then football will start, and I'll be home again for the fall. But so that's kind of part of the deal when I signed up, was that I needed to be able to still coach. So
right.
I reached out to a buddy of mine who was at Metrolina Christian Academy, and he's head football coach and strength coach. And I just said, "Hey, can I come on board and help you out?" And so they created a position for me, director of athletic performance, and it's a part-time gig, but so I'm there as much as I can be.
Right.
And then I help out with track, some baseball, some, but my main role is with football. So that's kind of where I'm at now.
Oh, that's awesome, because the more and more we get into newer times, I say, you're seeing more and more high schools start to create jobs for like strength and conditioning coaches. Like in Illinois, that was never really a thing. And then a couple schools in the suburbs, all of a sudden we're seeing how they're giving them teacher salaries to be like the strength and conditioning coach for all sports. And so it's slowly, and that athletic PE was always just kind of just weightlift, but now we're seeing true athletic PEs where the athletes are coming in and doing it during the school day or whatever it is. And so I think a lot of places are slowly getting to that, which is important, because like you said, I remember when I first started coaching, it was always usually like the head coach was the weight room guy, because he's like, well, I'm going to be here anyway. I'm going to come up with a weightlifting plan. And it became nothing against my head coach. I always say this. It's nothing against him. He just knew what he knew, right? You just do what they know. And it was lifting as heavy as possible. It was, running laps and gassers and stuff. And that's all we knew. And the older I get and the more I research, the more I'm like, well, that was stupid. Like, lifting heavy has a place in certain situations.
Right.
But that's a client for you. They're trying to get hold of you.
That's our Ring doorbell. My wife went outside.
My wife wants to buy a house here, so I know we're going to get one.
Yeah.
Oh, don't get me started. I'm trying to buy a house right now. Ugh, it's crazy. But yeah, that's what I'm seeing. Even for me, like I've took it upon myself this spring and summer. I went to athletic director and I said, "Hey, can I start a camp this summer just to see? I want to work with all athletics to do a sprint thing, just to get us faster and try to get it to where we're healthy and stuff." And he loved it. So all June, on top of basketball and football, I was working with girls basketball, soccer.
Yeah.
I'm going to work with girls flag football and try to like get them faster. And
I think the model, and I don't know why people deny this, because it's just, I guess it's you don't know what you don't know. Why people deny it. The strength and conditioning coach that's dedicated doesn't necessarily coach a sport, particularly as a head coach, with an in-school class model is so vastly superior for the kids, for performance, for their health, that I just don't understand. It's when I talk to people from, New York or Pennsylvania, where I'm from, and they're like, yeah, they don't let us do that. They don't know how we could. I'm like, no, there's no how we could. It's what we're willing to do, because they absolutely could say, hey, during your PE block, this is where you're going. You're an athlete, you go train. And, they can do whatever they want. And the denying that that's the superior model can't be. I mean, you can make an argument, I guess, but it's not going to be a valid one.
no,
It's, because the fact that you do it before or after school, and now the kids have to decide, do I sleep and eat? Do I go and work out? Do I eat breakfast, or do I skip it to go and work out? Do I go do my homework after school? Do I go play another sport after school? Do I go to the doctor appointment after school? Or do I go to workouts? When you got them in class, they're there. I had kids when I was in York. I think the most I ever saw was 238 days a year.
Oh, wow.
Maybe it was 240. I saw our football players 238 days a year. If they didn't miss any school and they didn't miss any summer workouts, which it's a little bit more of a problem where I'm at now, but in South Carolina, football matters more than anything else, and it's not even close. So they just don't miss. It's competitive, and at least at the school I was at, there's just too many athletes that if you don't show up, you're going to have a hard time playing. But, you can't tell me that model isn't superior to, hey, 3 days a week, either at 6 a.m. or at 4 p.m, we're going to spend 45 minutes running or sprinting, and then 45 minutes lifting, and then you can go home at 6 o'clock. And, no, we started practice. We did our Thursday practice in class for football in South Carolina.
Oh, wow.
We're in class, so we just practiced on Thursdays. And after school, they had a short meeting and a little meal, and then they went home or go, and so, yeah, that model of before and after school, I know it's still the standard in a lot of places, but it's weak. It's weak. I mean, if that's what you got, that's what you got. So you make the best of it. But it's hard to say that's a better model than what we see in, Illinois, starting Indiana he runs wild with it. North Carolina's finally getting there. South Carolina's been there. Georgia, Alabama, places like that have those activity periods or, weightlifting PE classes. And it's as simple as saying, hey, we've got an elective PE class and we're going to call it elective PE football. Mm-hmm. So if you play football, sign up for it.
Right.
And people say, well, what if they play football and baseball? Well, then that's their choice. If you have a baseball class during the spring, it's your choice. If you go to the football class, then the strength coach, if you have a qualified strength professional in your room, is going to understand how to adjust the load for this baseball guy during the season. And you do it. That's what I did at York. During track and field, we had a bunch of guys, obviously in the football team, they're in track. And, I made sure they were taken care of in season.
Right.
It's just it's a double-pronged attack. You have to have the opportunity, and you have to have a professional that's qualified enough in human performance, human movement, whatever, to be able to handle that and not just make it this big grind session for 238 years or days a year. So it's heading that way, but I think there's still a lot of states that are way behind.
Oh yeah, like Illinois, even though it's not a lot, it was only a handful of schools.
Mm-hmm.
So like for us, our PE teachers take care of the weightlifting PE, but it's not geared toward like it became it started off for like athletes, but then it came to like anybody could come in.
Yeah.
And then it kind of took away from that.
That's another argument, man. And people get mad when I say this because they're gonna be like, some of the non-athlete kids were my favorite, most hardworking kids. Blah, 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 blah. Like for every one of the kids you tell me wasn't an athlete, but he's into the athletes and they worked hard, I can tell you 100 kids that were turd birds and should have never been in there, and they got dumped in there. So don't yap about we have to give an opportunity to the non-athletes. The non-athletes can go to Planet Fitness after school when the athletes are practicing.
Right.
Or if you've got an extra period, set it up. At York, we didn't have an extra period. I'm sorry. Our weight room was filled 8 periods a semester, or 4 periods every semester, 8 periods a year with our athletes. Athletes had to take priority because they're the ones that are after school, staying until 6 o'clock at night, traveling on the weekends. They're not the ones that are like, yeah, I just want to come in and be a bodybuilder. Well, go to Planet Fitness. It costs $10 a month, bro. Just don't drop the weights. So, that whole debate, you can't mix. I mean, we do it at Metrolina, and it's my least favorite part of our school's setup. But I will say this. Most of the kids don't cause trouble at the private school. When I had that at the previous public school I was at in North Carolina, you mix those kids in, it was nothing but trouble, and I was going to be a babysitter. I made up my own rule that if you didn't dress or you misbehaved, you went to ISS, and they kept sending them back, and I'd keep sending them back to ISS until the administration finally said, okay, if Coach Hoover sends them down, just keep them.
Right.
Because they were tired of me just, making my own rules, so they just decided to make it a rule.
Yeah.
So, I just know when your team is in there as a team and your coach can be given a planning period, or like at York, our head football coach didn't necessarily teach any classes. So he was assigned to the football classes. So he was in there. Our defensive coordinator was assigned to the football class as a PE teacher. So he was in there. So we had 3 coaches in there. When girls basketball was in there, our girls basketball coach taught social studies, had a PE, or not a PE, a planning period. And when he didn't have a meeting going on, he was down there. Our baseball coach was a PE teacher, but his planning period was during the baseball class, so that he could go down. He could be in there a little bit with me, but he'd go down and do his work on his field and stuff. And then we had so many kids in that spring class that I'd have baseball and softball, and so we'd kind of like flip them back and forth, and their coach would have them on the field. Part of the, you can't tell me that's not a superior model for the kids' development. And
for sure.
And if you're going to throw a bunch of average Joes in that baseball class, what are they going to do when baseball's practicing? I'm not babysitting. And that's what and I guess you can't do this if you're a brand new teacher, but after you do it for 25, 27 years, you can walk into an interview or into a meeting with your principal and say, did you hire me to be a gym teacher or a strength and conditioning coach? Because if you hired me to be a strength and conditioning coach, then get these PE kids out of my class.
Right.
Because I'm not a babysitter.
Right.
And if a certain kid says, and we actually had a couple kids at York that would come and say, I really want to train like a football player. And what we'd do? We'd say, all right, sign up for PE, that block, and you can come over. We'll just let you come into the weight room. But you mess around, back to PE. And
Right.
that's how we handled that. And then you got, people sniveling about, oh, you're not being fair. No, what's not fair is how athletes are treated
Yep.
in that situation. That's
Yep.
not fair. What's not fair is if you've got a AP history class and you put in the lowest level learners in that class, because guess where the teaching is going to go to? And don't tell me we differentiate. I've been in a classroom for 27 years. If you've got lower level students and high flyers, guess who's getting snubbed? The high flyers. So it's the same thing in the weight room. Guess if you've got a room with half football players and half regular students that don't really care, and they might come in one day and not be motivated to, don't tell me it's my job to motivate. No, it's my job to prepare. I'm not going to motivate these kids that don't want to be in here. That's their coach's job.
Right.
So send me a regular student who doesn't want to be in there. And guess what? While I'm motivating this kid, what are the football guys doing? What are the basketball guys doing? What are the soccer girls doing? They're standing around waiting for me to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So I know I'm on, and there'll probably be people going, I don't care. I've been in this too long to care what people think. I'm just telling you the facts of it. And when schools get on board with that, they will immediately see a positive impact with their student athletes. Now, I'm all for you. You want to give me a class of 40 kids that want to be fitness and bodybuilders? Let's roll. I'm fine with that. Because now I got 40 kids that I don't have to prepare for athletics.
Mm-hmm.
We can do CrossFit. We can be bodybuilders. We can do whatever, power lift, whatever you guys want to do. Let's roll. But to mix them, it's crazy.
Oh, yeah. Because and then us and the head coach have talked about this. Like, it sucks because then we have to plan that session into our practice time. So, like you said, if we got to school at 3:00, mm-hmm. we want to do the sprinting stuff or whatever before. Well, now you're like, okay, how long do we need? Like 30 minutes? Okay, we're going to put them there for 30 minutes. Now we're looking at, let's start at 3:30 so they have time to get out of school, change, do whatever they need to do. Now we're going to 4.
Mm-hmm.
So then we got to get to the field. So now by that time it's 4:10, 4:15. Now we got to practice. And we're trying to simplify our practices so the practice itself is not long.
Mm-hmm.
But when you add an extra hour on top of it without even doing any football or basketball, whatever it is, now you're adding it. So like you said, now they're getting home at 6:30 or something. They still have to eat. They still have to shower. They still have to talk to mom and dad. They still want to try to have a life. So like if the kids are like, hey, let's go to a movie. Well, I got homework. Now I got to make it. Like I could have gotten the homework done if we started earlier. I could have gone to the movie or whatever it is. Go hang out at this place.
Just relax,
Yeah.
Just sit on their phone and veg, whatever.
Yeah.
But I remember, we had that baseball and softball class at the end of the period, at the end of the day. Our baseball and softball teams were never on the field past 5 o'clock. I mean,
That's
ever.
awesome.
Probably not even. So because they do all of their hitting and fielding stuff, they'd be in the cage, they'd do all of that before school is out.
Yep.
And then they go on the field for an hour or whatever, and then off they go unless they got games, and for softball and baseball, it's going to be 3 times a week sometimes. But on non-game nights, you could have the kids at the house before dinner time.
Right.
And then, of course, people are going to say, oh, yeah, I'm sure the kids are just going to go home. And that's not our business. Our business is get them. They've already been there since 7:30, 8 o'clock this morning. Get them home, but also give them the full regiment of their training and practice without having it take till 7 o'clock at night.
Right. Well, even the summer, like when they come in, we're there from 9 to noon, and people are like, you're doing 3-hour practices, and we're like, it's not. I mean, but they have to come in. We have to lift. I do sprinting first. We sprint first, do whatever, and then we lift. So right there is taking an hour. If you're doing 16, 20 minutes with me, then you're going down there for 30, 40 minutes with the weight guy. Like right there's an hour or so. Then we got to.
The weights guy, Brandon Heron works at your school?
No.
He's the weights guy, isn't he?
Yeah, the weights guy.
Yeah, I get it, man. But yeah, anyway, I could fuss about that all day. And I say things like that on social media once in a while. And people are always like, some of my best lifters are the kids that don't play sports. And I'm like, oh, I don't know where you teach, but I ain't North Carolina or South Carolina public school.
Mm-mm. Mm-mm. No. And then the best is, which we have to get over, is our during the spring, we'll be like, hey guys, the weight room's open in the morning. If you want to come in the morning so you can leave after school if you're not doing a sport, or we have a fitness center. It's open after school for the entire school for like an hour. We're like, guys, it's open for you. All of us coaches do multiple sports, so we'll pop in for a little bit and then go out to our practice. They're like, nah, I'd rather not do that. So they go lift on their own, which is cool, but they're doing like bodybuilder stuff. So they come in like, look how big I am. And then they come to football practice or basketball practice and realize how out of shape they are because they're just doing whatever.
And that's, that's another thing. Well, the weight room's open. Well, is there a performance professional in the weight room guiding the session? Because if not, then they're not training.
No.
They're not training. They're going to do what they like to do. And we did that at York a little bit. We would, the football coach liked to have the weight room open after school as kind of a social, like, I don't say social, but, the kids had all lifted, but they'd come in. And what I told them to do was, guys, come in and do curls and pull-ups and the goofy stuff you like to do at the gym. So that's what they do. They'd come in and that was, it was supervised, but not necessarily directed. And every once in a while, there'd be a kid that misses workout during the day, and I'd coach him through the workout or whatever. But for the most part, that was kind of that social session where they're like, I'm just going to do curls and dumbbell presses, and well, that's what they're going to do on their workout day if you don't instruct them what to do. So,
right, but then we kind of have to accept the fact that at least they're doing something. At least they're going and actually lifting. That was kind of the happy medium. Where like, okay, I know they're not doing basic.
But if you put that the academic folks that don't allow it to happen, now flip that over and say, they're just going to show up for math class. There's not going to really be a teacher in there, or there's going to be like a social studies teacher in there, and just let them do whatever math they want to do, And and they're going to be like, well, that would never work. Exactly. And so if you're trying to keep these kids healthy and performing and able to compete with kids from across the country that are in those places, I know at the school I was at in North Carolina, when we first started these classes, luckily we had a principal that his son plays in the NBA now. So, he didn't care, guidance counselor. Well, they take too many weightlifting classes. They're not going to be competitive with their college applications. And my question would be like, so does no one in Texas get into a good school? I mean, you know what I'm saying? Well, about Georgia, like about South Carolina. And then what was really awesome was after a couple of years, we had a kid that had taken strength conditioning class 6 times, get into Harvard, 6 times get into Davidson, 6 times. And we had multiple kids at UNC and NC State. One was accepted at Columbia, didn't go, so that I don't know where these guidance counselors learn that stuff, but it might be like in the guidance counselor rule book circa 1978 or something, because I don't they're not going to be like, man, this kid, holy cow, blew SAT out of the water, has a 4.0 unweighted GPA in all his course class. Well, took too many weightlifting and strength conditioning courses. We're not going to let him in, And when I had the one that went to one of those high performing schools ask me if someone asked him a question on that, I said in an interview, and I said, this is what you do. You say, my goal is to be the most well-rounded human being I can possibly be. Academics are extremely important to me, but my health, my athletic abilities, my everything is extremely important to me. And I took those classes because I knew I was taking very rigorous core classes, and I knew because we had a qualified professional strength conditioning coach on staff, these classes would be very rigorous as well and allow me to be the best I can be in a very well-rounded way.
Right.
And I said, and if they look at you and say anything other than you're in, then you didn't want to go to that school anyway.
Right.
You know?
Right. You know, athletes sometimes have the best grades because they have to be eligible, so they're more focused on that too. And
Mhm.
we're just preaching to the choir because us coaches say it all the time, especially the head coach. He's like, man, we got to check their grades. And we looked at it and like, we have some kids that only do one sport or two sports during that time. They have the best grades. And then all of a sudden it kind of drops off when they're not playing. So it's like, how do we get
Mhm.
that back? Do we need a structured strength and conditioning thing? Do we need this? And it always comes back to everything else. And that's why Illinois is very slow into this.
Yeah.
I have a buddy at a high school. He coached with us. Now he's over there. He started off as half the day for PE, half day strength conditioning. Now it's moving to he's going to be all strength conditioning. And the principal wants data to show that the athletes are getting better. So he keeps all the data.
Mhm.
And if it does well, they'll create a stipend.
That's the easiest data to keep, man, because
Oh, yeah.
teenage males, they don't even have to lift weights to get better at lifting weights. They just sleep and eat, like that's the easiest data. Like
he loves his life.
there is literally no skill in making a teenage male stronger.
No.
Like it's just progressive overload. That's not skill. The other things, the nuances, that's where the art and the skills come in. But as far as like if a principal's like, hey, give me some data, I'm going to be like, hey, here's our verticals, here's our fly 10, here's our bench press. And those things are all just going to, you don't even have to do anything and they're going to get better. So,
Oh, that's why he loves his life. He's like, Steve, this is awesome because
yeah.
I keep track of their lifting. I keep track of their speed. I show it to the AD and principal. And then I talk to the head coaches and say, are we seeing progression and like them being faster and moving and stuff like that? And if they say yes, here's my data. And then he's like,
I kid you not, part of my, that I don't know what you guys call in Illinois, but that end of the year state teaching evaluation.
Yeah.
You had to set out like what goals follow the curriculum of your class. And then you had to like put some data in. I uploaded the same sheet 7 years in a row. The same sheet. I didn't even change the kid's name. I might have changed the kids' names to the current class. I probably did change the kid's name. Upload the same data 7 years in a row.
And nobody
looked at it. No one looked at it. It's like the last year I was there, some Yahoo come in as principal and decided to. He is a pretty nice guy. I shouldn't call him a Yahoo, but he thought like uploading lesson plans. Everybody who hadn't been doing it needed to do it. It was somehow going to improve their teaching abilities by uploading lesson plans. I uploaded the same one for the first maybe 4 or 5 months, exactly the same one. Got a check mark on it. And then we had a math teacher that was like a doctor of math. Like, she'd been teaching, like she was like state teacher of the year 2 or 3 times. They gave her a hard time about uploading a lesson plan. And so she started uploading blank sheets of paper. And so the rest of us, like not all of us, but most of the guys in P were like, let's start uploading blank sheets of paper. So we just started uploading blank sheets of paper, and there'd be a check mark every single day. And just play the game, man. And that's what your buddy's got. He's just gotta play the game, And if it's an athletic-minded principal, he'll wink and smile when he sees he's playing the game. And if it's not an athletic-minded principal, he won't even know what he's looking at, or she. So.
Well, that's where he is. He has an athletic-minded administration. So, it's just for them. I think it's just for them to prove, like, oh, we're going to create a stipend for an assistant strength guy, so we need this.
That's the way to do it. Mm-hmm.
And he can go straight to his AD when he's out of protein and stuff and say, I need this, and he orders it. So I think that's another way to be like, look, if they have protein, they have this. And so that's how they do it. And, he loves it, though. He's like, it's a school that doesn't really win in a lot of sports, but like he wants to change it around and he's living the dream and we're jealous. He's like, yeah, I'm just going to be in the weight room all day, every day.
Mm-hmm.
And the head coaches love it because it takes away from their practice planning. It takes away from this. And I'm like,
I'm telling you, my last 7 years in education in South Carolina, I'd walk in the gym, like just to see what was going on or talk to other coaches. And I'd see PE chaos and I'd just turn around and walk. like during my planning period, I walk in there and go, whoa, now I'm out. They'd be yelling at kids about going to the bathroom, when they're not supposed to, or not sitting where they're supposed to if they're not dressed. And I just stand in there and go, God, thank God, I'm back in the weight room, because I had a team and a coach, so I didn't have to discipline anybody.
Right.
I'd just say, go see your coach if they weren't doing what they were supposed to do, and I didn't have to worry about it. It was a great job.
Oh, that
Great
sounds
job.
awesome.
Mm-hmm.
But then some schools for us in Illinois are like, well, we'll pay this guy to come in the morning and stay after and blah, blah, blah. Well, this person, it's a stipend. So he's like, well, this isn't my full-time job's in the building, so I still want to coach and get a stipend. Well, then they say, we got to pick. We can't let you double dip. We can't let you be the
Yeah.
guy and then go coach basketball and get another stipend. You can't double dip. And we're like, well, of course they're going to pick the sport because the stipend's probably higher.
Yeah.
And so now you're making them decide, do you want to make the whole school better or just that?
That was another thing that was really helpful. Not in all, I shouldn't say in South Carolina, because there's some places that are still backwards. North Carolina has a lot of archaic stuff going on still. But in a lot of areas of South Carolina, they're just hiring a professional for that position. And, I think my coaching stipend my last year was like over $14,000.
It's awesome.
Yeah. So, and that went with a pretty, since we're kind of a suburb of Charlotte a little bit, those schools make a decent teaching rates too. So, but yeah, that was a good job. I had a lot of great coaches to work with. But when the job of SimpliFaster came up, that's literally a dream job, man.
Right.
We just recreated it on the run, and sometimes I'm crazy, slammed, busy, and other times, it's not as busy. But I get to travel around the country and meet coaches all over the place, and it's a pretty good gig.
One of the last things I thought of before you have to go live your life away from this nobody from Illinois talking to you. The changes that have happened over time, because like I mentioned earlier, we like gassers and we're going to lift heavy and stuff like that. When did you start to see like that may not be the right way to go about it, the changes that come with it?
I would say probably about the time that I was bumming around with Ethan Reeve at Wake, because he's old school and he's, but even the smart old school guys understand it's all about performance.
Right.
And when you start to step back and say, and this is just over the last 8 or 10 years, I've gone all in on this, is, how's your brain reacting to these different situations, and how can we, get that brain body connection to be as prepared as possible for what you need to do to perform. And gassers ain't it,
No.
I mean, you could do it. It's not gonna, but my idea on that is, they're gonna jog back and forth. They're gonna drop their head and, whatever. Let's sprint. Or, I'm not anti-conditioning. I mean, people probably think that, but how we do, I don't even, like, I wouldn't even know if our head coach even knows, because he's really a feed the cats guy.
Yeah.
And so I don't even know if he even realizes we do this for conditioning, because he's not usually with me when we're doing it, is we do tempo change of directions. And we start with 15 seconds on, and we'll put them in groups of 4. And we have a very specific way that we change directions. We use Tony Vellani's game speed curriculum. So we'll say, hey, we're going wide base crossover at 135. And they'll do that they'll be in a group of 4, and they'll just do that for 15 straight seconds. When I blow the whistle, they stop immediately. The next guy stops. Yeah. So in 1 minute, all 4 of those guys are getting 15-second tempo change of directions.
Right.
And you just get greater effort, and you're doing things that they're going to do in the sport, as opposed to just jogging back and forth, so those things, when you start to really take a 10,000-foot view and start to think, what if the way that sport coaches have done it for the first 100 years was not necessarily the right way? Maybe not even 100, probably, 65 years was not necessarily the right way. And then a lot of that stuff that we still do is based on a time when, you didn't see your athletes until August. They left school in June. You didn't see them in August back in maybe the 50s and 60s and 70s.
Right.
Well, now, why would we do a bunch of slow gassers when we practice from May? We have spring ball in May. Then we have 7-on-7s all summer long, or basketball plays basketball all summer long. And then we're going to condition. And, I got our basketball coach on this too when I was at York. You play 5 scrimmages this week. Why are you running at practice? And he's like, you know what? That is ridiculous.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And he was right. Like what's if you want to condition, play the sport.
Yep.
So
yep.
Find a way to simulate the sport a little bit if you're not playing. And, and it, with the lifting, I look at it like this. You can get kids, it's so easy to get kids strong. Like, people should stop banging their chest about that, because it's literally like the easiest thing ever. But it's teenage males. And, so you look at, all right, we could have all of our freshmen doing a great back squat at, 85, 90% maximum out if you'd spend the time, and they're going to get strong. Or you could have them do 1x20 and they're going to get strong.
Right.
But by doing the 1x20 or even the 5x5 at a lower, they're still going to get strong with 60 to 70% or 50% when they first start training.
Mm-hmm.
The problem with adding the heavy adaptation stuff early is they're going to adapt to that. And then in the 9th grade, all of a sudden you got a kid squatting 450 pounds. Where do you go from that? You just keep adding load? I mean, at what point does the return on investment stop? So Why not spend less? This is my analogy all the time. I've got a car for sale for $3,000 and you have $5,000. You can get that car for $3,000, $4,000, or $5,000. If you walk up to me and I got car for sale, $3,000, you say, I'll give you $5,000. I'd be like, okay, I'll take $5,000. Your goal was get the car. My goal was sell the car. Well, the car's yours. I've sold it. But you could have bought it for $3,000 and had $2,000 left in the bank to improve it over the next few years and really have a more improved car. Because what you just did was you spent all of your money too early, and now if something needs to be updated, you can't. Same with the kid. You get them grinding out at 14, 15 years old, and then they're going to hit a plateau way sooner. And let's extend that runway by paying less early. And it's boring.
Yeah.
And even I get impatient.
Right.
But spend less early so that their runway's longer and you have that money in the bank to continue to spend as they grow through their senior year.
Right.
So, yeah, we have our seniors doing a lot of more advanced stuff. But we had a nice base of other stuff, before that. So those things all came about in the last 8 or 10 years, probably for me. But it just makes sense. And you know what? Everybody has their own opinion and they're welcome to it. No one's ever going to convince me otherwise.
Right.
Only maybe even farther away from the heavy grinding lifts, probably.
Right. Right. Well, Coach, I know you got to go. I appreciate your time coming on here.
Yeah, man, I appreciate you asking me. And I guess we kind of talked philosophy more than anything at the beginning. I hope it was okay.
No, it was perfect. Thank you.
Okay. All right.